Welcome to the first Manhattan tutorial. This tutorial will introduce you to the basics of the pattern and how to enter notes and musical data. The pattern is a musical grid. By default, cells in the pattern have spaces for pitch, instrument, volume, and a pattern effect, which will be discussed later. The example provided in the text shows a C sharp in the 5th octave at maximum velocity 64 using a piano, PN. There are a variety of ways of entering notes. By default, the computer keyboard is treated as a virtual piano, laid out as shown bottom right. The QWERTY keys and the ZXCV line become white notes in 2 registers of the keyboard. I can enter a rising scale of chromatic notes by pressing the keys accordingly. A second scale exists beneath this in the ZXCV line. If you're not familiar with the piano, you can also simply type the notes using letters if you switch to the alphanumeric pitch mode. To do this, press Ctrl-Alt-M until the mode is displayed at the bottom. Now I can simply get an A by typing an A. If I want an A sharp, I can press Shift-A. To enter notes in other octaves, you can either change the current octave, edit the octave entry for notes you've already entered, or press Ctrl +- to go up and down. New notes acquire the currently selected instrument shown in the toolbar, or if specified, use the Channels instrument setting in Channels, which hides the instrument column. Notes end automatically with the start of the next note, or manually with a note off. Enter a note off using the tilde key adjacent to the left shift key. To clear a note, we can either press backspace, or we can just put a dot back in the pattern. All other cell values, such as instrument, volume, pan, depth, and effects, are simply entered as text. You can move around the pattern using the cursor keys, or by tabbing, to move quickly between channels, Shift-Tab to go back, or by pressing the page up or page down keys, which on a MacBook is function up and down. The mouse can also be used, but it pays to get comfortable with the keyboard. Playback runs down the pattern, looping back to the start. Press space to start playback, and to stop it. To start from the beginning of the pattern, press Alt-space. In this tutorial, we'll explore entering music into the program by recreating Crockett's theme by Jan Hammer, a 1980s synthesizer hit used in Miami Vice. A link to the original is provided in the tutorial. The first 3 channels use a warm synth pad P2, which has already been specified in the channel settings, hiding the cell's instrument column. As a guide, the pitches of the required chords are shown in red labels, at the appropriate time and position in the pattern. We will use the keyboard to place corresponding notes in each labeled cell using the virtual piano. Note that when you move the cursor to the labels, they will move out of the way to allow you to enter the notes into that space. I can now play the full chord sequence from the start. Note how each note entry starts a note, which is then stopped by the next note, but can also be stopped by entering a note off using the tilde key. We will now move to the second part of the tutorial, which looks at making selections and editing blocks of music. In channels 4, 5 and 6, a small fragment of the drum pattern has been provided. Unmute them by cursoring to those channels and pressing Alt-M to toggle that channel. We can hear this fragment by pressing play. We can select blocks of data like any other program by holding Shift as we cursor around the program to create a selection of multiple items. Here I have selected the first beat of the bar, and I press Command-C to copy it to the clipboard. I then go to the top left of it and press Command-V, paste, and we insert another copy of it. The existing data moves down the pattern, such that if we repeat this process, we complete the drum pattern. Now let's move on to step 3 to create the bass line. In this step, we're going to use a very similar process, whereby we take a fragment of material already provided to us and copy and paste it over the rest of the channel. I'll unmute channel 7, and we can hear the fragment. I'll select that fragment and copy it to the rest of the channel as we did with the drum part. However, we can't simply repeat this bass line, it needs to follow and be sympathetic to our chord sequence, so it needs to be using different pitches. The pitches required are provided with the labels in blue, and what we'll do is select the range of notes that we want to change, and then use the Alt up and down arrows while we're in the pitch column to transpose the notes up and down. This needs to go up to an F. This goes down to a C, and so on. Now we have our chord sequence, drum pattern, and bass line. All that remains now is to enter the melody. This is provided for us in score notation in the tutorial. But don't worry if you don't read music. Manhattan will give you tips on the pitches and timings shown in the written phrase. Simply hover the mouse pointer over the different events in the phrase, and it will tell you what each event is. We start by moving to the top of the channel and seeing what the first event is. It's a rest. It lasts for 1 beat, 4 rows, so we simply move down 4 rows, ready for the next note, which is a D6. This lasts for half a beat, 2 rows, before a C6. Then a full beat of A, a full beat of F. And so on. If you lose your place or aren't sure what the notes are or where they go, you can also click the written phrase, and Manhattan will insert the note underneath the pointer. Our piece is now complete. We can listen to the full pattern by pressing Alt-Space. This concludes the first tutorial. Feel free to play around with this music and explore the various editing methods provided in Manhattan. If at any stage you need help, you can press Command-H, and wherever you are, it will tell you how that bit of the program works. You can also find out a list of useful keyboard shortcuts for where you are by pressing Command-K for keyboard. When you're ready, move to the second tutorial where we'll look at formulas and code and how to change the repeating pattern over time.